Hello, we are the Geeks and the Degenerates, and I am Enzo, and with me, as always, is John. And yes, you read the title and you saw the thumbnail, right? We are going back to Jurassic Park. And if you're thinking like we already did a video compilation of the first three, we thought since it's Jurassic Park's 30th anniversary this year, that it should get the proper Geeks and the Degenerates treatment. And our earlier video was just us being like, I don't know how to do this YouTube thing. I hope this works.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jurassic Park review.
Yeah, I agree. Like us doing it for the first time, and yes, as we started, we're like, let's just do the movies that we really like.
Yeah.
And we are like, okay, well, let's do Jurassic Park because we all love it.
Yeah.
When we did it, we didn't really do it that well. If you've seen our early days, so
Yeah.
don't be surprised when you start seeing, hey, The Lost World or the third movie. So yeah.
That video is still canon, by the way, if you want to see, our glory earlier days, I guess.
Here, it's better. Two T-Rex. What you talking about?
Oh, yeah. So, you know what's better than one T-Rex? Two T-Rex!
Oh!
Yeah, if you want to compare
Yeah.
our very not so professional days to right now,
Yeah.
which is still not that professional.
Somewhat of an upgrade. Professional is a big question mark, but for now, I have a few questions for those who are new and are just tuning in and who haven't, gone back and seen our earlier stuff. What's your history with this movie?
Me?
Yeah.
This is probably, when you're a baby,
Yeah.
or like probably 3 years old, and then that was like the moment you kind of realized you were alive.
Yeah.
You get those feelings. I gotta say, the moment where I found out that, oh, I'm actually a living, breathing human being, I was watching Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
That was probably the first movie I could ever comprehend and see. And that's why this movie is so special to me. And it kind of cemented me as like, oh, I am a movie buff.
Mm-hmm.
This is my number one movie of all time. Somewhere deep down inside my heart, it's in a special place. And it'll never lose its place.
Yeah.
The movie is hella special to me. And that is how I also met my best friend, who is now my co-host. We just kept talking about dinosaurs, and we would bring each other like dinosaur books and shit, and we would always talk about Jurassic Park. And that's how this took off. It was kind of like a timeline thing. If we never talked about dinosaurs, we would have never been here where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, same like you. Like, as far as like being alive and stuff, like as far back as I can remember, since I was born in 95, the two VHS I constantly played was The Lion King and this. And this kind of overtook The Lion King because I'm seeing things that I've only seen in like stores and books that are only, not moving images. Like they're cool to look at, but they're not breathing, they're not moving. And this just transporting me back to like, oh shit, they are real. Dinosaurs are a real thing.
Yep, that is fucking true.
Yeah.
And God, like as kids, like have you ever just like skipped over the whole chaos theory and the whole repercussions of playing God, where I just want to see a real life dinosaur?
Yeah, I just want to see dinosaurs. I don't want the boring parts, but like, I'm sure you've gone through this too. Like when, as you grow older, the conversation between Hammond and Grant and Ellie Sattler and Ian Malcolm, you're like, I am 100% in tune for this conversation because it is fascinating stuff.
Exactly. We never thought of this as a sci-fi movie starting, right?
Yeah.
Like this was, we never considered this as sci-fi.
Yeah.
And then when we grew up, I was like, oh, this is more sci-fi than Star Wars.
Yeah.
We're like, what? Holy shit.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can actually do it is just illegal. We can clone.
Yeah.
We just choose not to because we saw Jurassic Park.
Yeah. But yeah, for a guide, I do have my old dinosaur book. Like, it's falling apart.
I also have a dinosaur. I can't get it.
It's falling apart at the seams, and it's from the Smithsonian apparently, which I now just realized. Like, holy shit!
Can I see that?
Yeah.
That's the thing you fucking brought to the bus.
Yeah.
And it's held by tape.
You know who also liked dinosaurs? Steven Spielberg, because the earliest toy he can remember is a dinosaur toy, and that captured his imagination. Like, I don't know if you know the story of his dad taking him out to look at the stars, and that's how he fell in love. Like, what else is up there? What's his inspiration for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Dude, even you and me, like, the only things we would fucking bring to the bus are dinosaur toys. We have like a 5-year age gap, by the way.
Yeah.
to anyone who doesn't know, well, 3 years. Sorry, 3-year age gap.
Yeah, I'm not
You
that
see
ancient.
this? Yeah. You see this little child and this somewhat middle height child just holding dinosaur books and dinosaur toys together.
Yeah.
While being in a school that doesn't believe in evolution. Yeah. Question. I have one question. You had the VHS, right?
Yeah.
What was the cover? Because every cover was so different. Was kind of the same but very distinct.
It was like the T-Rex roaring. Like, the logo was below it, and then it had like a T-Rex face. Right, and the back was a Velociraptor.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, mine was, if anybody remembered, it's like the cover's like rain, and then you just see the T-Rex like sneaking at the back. I was like, oh, I love that shit.
And then before we get into like the movie stuff and the plot, we always do spoilers here, and as I said, this is for the 30th anniversary. So we're for like, I was born in 2019. You're 3 years old. Go back to sleep, and come back.
No, well, when I was 3, I watched this movie. So if you're watching this and you could comprehend our words, go watch Jurassic Park.
You just don't watch us with our language with your parents, because they might get mad at us. They'll get mad at you. We don't want that. But yeah, getting into the movie, and I'll talk about the behind the scenes as we go on. We start in an island, and we don't see we see a dinosaur, but it's in a cargo hold, and we see why am I forgetting? Muldoon, Robert Muldoon, who's the ward, and they see the workers, and you can't really tell what dinosaur it is if this is your first time, but like, if you've seen this multiple times, you know it's a Velociraptor. And the opening does remind me of Jaws, where the poor girl is just swept away and just rocked back and forth, and that's what happens to the worker. You're like, oh no.
Well, at least
guy.
the difference with this one, he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Unlike the girl in the movie, she was like, I'm just a paid actress. What the fuck's going on?
And it's scary too, because you see that the animal just destroying this guy's lower half as he's being rocked up and down, and Robert Muldoon screams at the people to shoot her, but it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, hey, at least we knew that Robert Muldoon wasn't kind of just leave him be. He's food now. you know, but yeah, it is a very interesting opening because it's so vague. It's filmed in the dark. This is where I fell in love with spotlights and fog at night.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of setting.
Yeah.
And I was like, so good.
And then we go to the first dig site with the people working for Hammond and lawyer Gennaro asking where he is, and he's like, oh, he's at his daughter's divorce hearings. Which wouldn't be the first or the only time we would hear about divorce in this entire franchise, but sure.
I mean, at least this one wasn't hammered home.
Yeah. But they're like, well, we're being sued by the guy who got eaten. And why isn't he here? We need outside opinions. We got Ian Malcolm, but they say he's too much of a rock star. We need a legit paleontologist. How about Grant? Why Grant? Because he's like me. He's a digger. And you see the mosquito in the ember. And then you go to the Montana dig site where unrealistically paleontologists are finding this like neat, completed Velociraptor fossil. Like, I didn't know it was that easy to find fossils.
Yeah, but this is where we get introduced to Grant.
Yeah.
And I think this is where I got my characteristic of not liking children. Like, there's this kid, I was like, he just looks like a big bird.
Yeah.
It was like, but yeah, like Alan Grant pulls out this traumatic explanation of how a velociraptor would gut you and pretty much eat you from the back of the neck or some shit like that.
Yeah. The point
And I
is,
was like,
you're alive
he's-
while you're screaming your
He's
guts
10
out. Yeah.
or 16, I don't know.
I wish the theory was true that he grows up to be Chris Pratt in Jurassic World, but it's not.
Nah, it's not.
Yeah. And like, yeah, you learn that Alan Grant is this grumpy guy who doesn't like kids, even though Ellie Sattler tries her best. And then their biggest...
And you do see a little tension between these two.
Yeah, you don't
It's
really...
kind of obvious.
Like, they never announced they're in a relationship until, like, midway through. You're like, oh, obviously, but it's not out in the open. But it's obvious. And, like, I don't think he gets with her unless she's a paleontologist. You're like, because he's so in love with his work that you're like, I don't think in any other field that you would meet each other. But it's only through, you know, fate that you find each other. But, yeah, they're...
It was a little bit odd knowing the fact that Laura Dern was, what, 24?
Yeah.
Or 25? And Sam Neill's within his 30s already here. A little bit odd, but we'll let it slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I will ask you this. Oh, and I won't ask you this. I will say this. Sure, every kid's hero when they were growing up was Batman, Superman, or some X-Men or the Avengers. My hero growing up was Alan Grant.
Yeah.
Like, more than anything, like, I remember crying at Halloween, asking my, I was like, dress me up like Dr. Grant. I was like, I can't find the cowboy hat. I was like, yeah, what?
Yeah, I think that's the first time as a kid I was like, he's the protagonist. He's the person I'm rooting for. But yeah.
Yeah. Dude in the blue shirt is the main guy.
Yeah. Their dig is disturbed by some guy flying down in a helicopter. Then Alan Grant goes to the trailer. I don't know how fast John Hammond had to run into the trailer to be like, perfect timing. They will never guess where I am.
You just see you see John Hammond just like,
fuck. But, yeah, he opens their champagne. Grant's like, hey, we were saving that for this day, I guarantee it. And then he tells Grant and Dr. Sattler who he is, and he says, I own an island off the coast of Costa Rica. I'm making a park that with attractions the world has never seen before. I spared no expense, and I need a second opinion. We're not really sure if you want to do this. If you do this, I will fund your dig site for another 3 years. They're like, oh shit. All right.
yeah. And this makes like Alan Grant kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We'll go to your island. And just, you know, when you would think that, like, oh, you have a resort off the coast of Costa Rica in a make-believe Puerto Rican, South American island,
Yeah.
you would think, oh, it's a museum. No. For some reason, oddly enough, why are there barbed wires?
Yeah.
Electrical fences and
What?
shit like that.
Before that, we do get to one of the antagonists, which is Dennis Nedry, who's making this deal with Dodson, who's for some reason the main bad guy of the last movie, Jurassic World Dominion. You're like, okay.
No, not the same guy.
It's not?
They've confirmed that's not Dodson.
That's not, oh, that was really confusing then. But yeah, he...
No, we didn't have Dodson here.
But yeah, you get the sense that Dennis Nedry is not a nice man. Like, he ruined someone's pie, for fuck's sake. He's impatient, and he knows how to do the job, but it has to be within this time limit. And he gets one of the most iconic icons that you ever seen in movies, the Barbasol shaving kit thing.
Dude, I would love to have that on my desk.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean much to somebody who hasn't watched Jurassic Park. I would love to have that thing. And then when you open it up, it has like the slots for the DNA file, the vials. Oh.
Yeah, like, I forgot which company did it, but they made like a custom figure of like the Barbasol with actual shaving cream, and then inside was Dennis Nedry, and then the DNA.
So good. I would love to have that.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, they see the helicopter flying to Isla Nublar, and you see Ian Malcolm for the first time. And since we have our cast assembled, we should know that Spielberg didn't want movie stars, but I think the studio did, because one of the first choices for John Hammond was Clint Eastwood and Marlon Brando.
That would have been such an odd pick. Like, just imagine John Hamm just like staring down the T-Rex, just like, make my day. Go on.
And since James Cameron was part of the bidding war to get Jurassic Park, his top choices was Bill Paxton as Ian Malcolm.
Wow.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger as Alan Grant. But Harrison Ford was also supposed to play Alan Grant. And you're like, that's interesting. But
that's a good choice for having a guy who doesn't like children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Ian Malcolm, one of the names I dug up was Jim Carrey.
No, it's not as suave as, Jeff Goldblum, but yeah.
And for Ellie Sattler, one of the people who auditioned was your love, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Damn it.
Among that is Julia Roberts, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sandra Bullock, like a who's who of the 90s, and Nicole Kidman.
But it is very weird because Sam Neill is a very, like, underground actor at the time. Like
indie.
Do you know what the movie that they had before Jurassic Park was? The Possession, and that was an odd avant-garde movie for Sam Neill. And then they were like, I want him to be in a dinosaur movie.
Yeah. But since Spielberg is a master filmmaker, he's like, you know what, I'll make this work.
Yeah.
And then they go land and the helipad, and they go off exploring the island, and you're like, again, if you've never seen this movie, you're like, what kind of park are you running? Unless you've seen the opening, you're like, yeah, what park are you running? It's scary.
Yeah, now we're in the shoes of Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler and Malcolm.
Yeah.
You're just like, what the fuck do you have here?
Yeah.
And then you see the first dinosaur. Sure, we got the Velociraptor at the start, but this is the time when they're like, hey, this is what you gotta look forward to.
Yeah.
And it's a fucking Brachiosaurus, and then you see the herd.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was made in 92?
93. Oh, yeah, made 92.
93.
But yeah,
92.
you see the Brachiosaurus, and it's all CGI, and you like how talented the actors are, because they're basically acting against nothing. And we've seen the prequels where people are like, I don't like sand, you don't like sand, I don't like sand. Very robotic, but here you see like they sell the fact that they're, oh my god, that's a dinosaur, and like I'm describing the scene, but you already have the picture of Alan Grant's face and Laura Dern's face, and like, oh my god. Yeah.
And then once that scene ends, we immediately go to I guess the hotel or the park itself.
I would say activity center.
Going back to the main lobby.
Do you like how fast are these things? And then he's like, oh well, we caught the T-Rex at like 32 miles per hour, and he's like, you have a T-Rex?
You have a T-Rex?
Yeah, and then you get the welcome to Jurassic Park, and you're like, that seems iconic. But yeah, they go to the main activity center where you meet Mr. DNA, who explains about the dinosaurs and how they work.
And future bad guy,
Dr. Wu.
Wong? Yeah.
Yeah, DNA is done by cloning, and then they fill the gene sequences with frog DNA, and like they see the birth of a baby velociraptor, and they're like, he tells them that, oh well, all the dinosaurs here are female, and they're like, how can you be sure? How can you be sure that they don't, breed with each other? They don't mate. And he's like, well, we just make them female and they don't mate. And Dr. Malcolm is like, well, life can't be contained in the history of evolution. It breaks through barriers, sometimes violently. And he's like, are you saying that an island full of female dinosaurs will breed? And he's like, no, I am saying that life finds a way.
I love it that you timed that
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah. I like how the reactions of the people are both a mixture of awe and terror. Just like when Hammond tells Grant that they have a T-Rex, he's like, "Oh wow!" And then when he asks Dr. Bruce, like, "What species am I holding?" He's like, "Oh, it's a Velociraptor." He's like,
And we got a whole fucking Wikipedia article from earlier on how it could disembowel you.
Yeah.
Alan Grant's just like, oh shit.
"Yeah," and then they go to
It's
the
like,
feeding
what have
pen.
you made?
They go to the feeding pen where they feed the raptors with the poor bull. And you're like, "Oh, the poor thing."
Yeah, that would not slide in today's
Today-
standards.
Like for any zoo, I don't think I don't think anyone's allowed to feed live animals to anything. But yeah, like you see great reaction shots, and it's funny to think that that's just Spielberg making noises and just getting the right reaction shots. Like, I am a raptor. Pretend I am killing this cow, and they're just like,
Yeah, because it's such a huge, parallel from holding this little lizard thing to seeing this thing murder this huge ass cow.
yeah.
You're just like, oh, that was in my hand. Like, I was able to carry that thing, and now it's doing that.
Yeah, and that's why Robert Muldoon is like, they should all be destroyed, and gives the gist like they're lethal at 8 months, and then this female just destroyed the entire pack except for 2, and you're like, I don't think Hammond really listens to the best of the best he hires. He's just like, you're the best, you do your job. Why we should have rappers? I can't hear you over my own ambition.
God. And what was the thing that that Malcolm says through the dinner scene?
I like after saying the poor cow eating. You're like, you want some food, and then you see Laura Dern's face of this like, no, thank you. I don't think I'm hungry anymore.
I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, Malcolm says the lack of humility for nature is astounding. And the lawyer's like, well, it's not as bad as we thought it was. He's like, no, it's worse. It's worse. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you the problem is that you didn't have any discipline to acquire this knowledge. You didn't earn it for yourself. And even before you knew what you had, you patented it, and then you packaged it, and then now you're slapping it on a lunchbox, and now you're selling it. Genetic power is the most awesome thing in the planet, and you're wielding it like a kid who found his dad's gun.
Such good philosophy.
Yeah, and then no one...
this man just telling off a whole corporate, this is what we want to say to corporate. Like, yeah. You don't know what you're doing. Like, please stop playing God.
Yeah, like your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop and think with whether or not they should. Like the entire round table of like Dr. Satter being like, well, how can you make an extinct ecosystem and expect to control it? The plants don't know what century they are, and they will react violently. And Dr. Grant hits them with the, well, dinosaurs and humans have been separated by 65 million years of evolution, and suddenly they're thrown back into the mix, and who knows what's going to happen. And even Hammond's like, well, how about condors? And Dr. Malcolm's like, yeah, condors are on the verge of extinction, but that's not the same thing as bringing back species who had their shot on this planet. And nature's like, you're done.
Yeah, like, and as John has said, it's like, the only person who's on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right, because what you did is really wrong.
And then we get to meet, the tour starts and you get to meet the John Hammond.
Triceratops.
No, the two kids.
Lex
and Tim.
Yeah.
I do follow Ariana Richards on Instagram, and it's nice seeing her still supportive of the franchise. And of course, the actor of Tim pops up like everywhere. Like, you're the kid from Jurassic Park. He's from the Pacific.
He's in the Pacific.
Bohemian Rhapsody. The Social
yeah.
The Social Network.
Yeah,
you're like, I kind of wish you led something other than a miniseries, but maybe you just like you know what? I'll just hang out in the background.
Mhm. But yeah, like I do love it that once we start going into it, they did pull up some big problems with having live dinosaurs in their environment, or as they thought what their environment is, and being like, "Oh, I can't wait to see the dinosaurs." And you like, here's the thing: they kind of don't like being seen.
Yeah, it's like with modern zoos of like if you go to like the nicest zoos, you're like, I can't wait to see this, and you're like, I can't see shit.
It's like saying, "Oh, I want to see a jaguar in its natural habitat." You won't see it. It's there, but you're not gonna see it.
Yeah, and then you see the control tower, and like, if you're old enough to have watched other movies, you're like, that's Samuel Jackson. Oh shit.
Mm-hmm. Nick Fury was taking charge of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and I do like his character, and this is before he blew up with Pulp Fiction. Like the 90s was his, breakout role, and before that he had Goodfellas for like 5 seconds of screen time. Yeah, he's the guy Joe Pesci.
Yeah, he kills.
Yeah. But like the cars won't work and stuff is breaking down, and Hammond turns to Ned and he's like, "Our lives are at stake, and you have butterfingers." And he's like, well, "What do you want me to do, Dad? You're not helping with my financial problems. Like, I will not be drawn into another financial debate with you. Your problems are your problems." He's like, "Okay, Dad. I'll do my job."
And I do love it that what was the name of the character of Samuel L. Jackson?
Ray Arnold.
Yeah, Ray Arnold. I do love it that this man is one of the sensible ones in this island.
Yeah.
Like, he has a photo of Oppenheimer on his computer, and he's like, "Yep, this man is the embodiment of, for the sake of science, we've gone too far."
Yeah. I like that you pointed out that symbolism, but yeah, they go to the Dilophosaurus and they go to the T-Rex where everybody's obviously excited, but it's a no-show, and they try to tempt it with the goat, and Dr. Grant's like, it doesn't want to be fed, it wants to hunt. Dr. Malcolm's like, you are going to have dinosaurs on your tour, right? And poor Hammond's like, I really hate that, man.
I really do. He's like, ha! He's like breathing on the camera.
Yeah. And you see this man flirt with Dr. Satter, and I'm like, poor Dr. Grant. Like, showing her chaos theory.
Being the cuck of the car.
Yeah. And then before
Dr. Grant.
Before that, she flirts with her, like, when he's like, oh, I'm a chaotician. And deals with the laws of, like, attraction. Dr. Satter, I'm sure you're familiar with the laws of attraction. And you're like, oh, right in front of her boyfriend. Cool.
Hey, no, that wasn't her boyfriend, though. They didn't really establish that they were a thing. They were just co-workers that were like,
Yeah, but you see how distracted Grant is. Like, he could really care less about him flirting with Dr. Satter because he sees a distressed Triceratops and jumps off the car, and Malcolm's like, well, that is chaos theory. We could have predicted that they would jump out of the cars and I'm alone talking to myself. Alright.
Which proves my point.
Yeah. It is a cool scene, the Triceratops scene, because it took 8 workers to do that thing. Yeah.
Yes, the thing that was missing with the new movies. Sure, CGI is great and probably easier to make compared to animatronics, but it just kind of lacked the life and the feel. And look at the fact that Steven Spielberg was about to go with puppet stop motion for the dinosaurs. If you saw back behind the scenes of like how they did like Velociraptor movements and how it would run on a catwalk, that shit was great.
Yeah,
but a bit jarring. It kind of looked like you were watching Beetlejuice.
Yeah, and that's why they incorporated ILM, who did Terminator 2, and they're like, these guys are pretty good with like CGI, and that's why he took them. They're like, all right, please help us with the dinosaurs, and that's why we have this mix of practical and CGI effects. And I do like the Triceratops scene, and like, again, it's one of those things where I'm describing it, and like, even without the pictures were flashing, if you've seen this movie, you see Dr. Grant just pressing his head against the Triceratops, and Dr. Satter just being like, "Oh my God, it's a fucking Triceratops."
Yeah, and then you see Lex and Tim just seeing Alan Grant being a kid again, because this was his favorite dinosaur.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see, but this is the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
We're getting something really bad soon, as Dr. Malcolm has predicted.
Yeah. And like, she stays behind, Dr. Satter stays behind us. The rest of the group have to go because there's a hurricane coming. And that's what happens in real life too. Like, they made a set in Hawaii and was destroyed by a hurricane, and the poor staff had to shelter in the ballroom of the hotel as like 100-mile-per-hour winds are hitting Hawaii, and John Hammond, Richard Attenborough, is sleeping peacefully. And they were like, "How do you sleep so peacefully during this?" And he's like, "Well, I was alive during the Blitzkrieg. I was alive through that." So compared to this, it's fine.
That is such a badass thing to say. I don't know. That shit was just so cool.
Yeah.
Like, the storm doesn't scare me. I've seen worse.
Yeah, and like after the storm, the crew and the production teams and all the teams did pitch in to help rebuild the community that was destroyed during the storm. So
Oh, that's nice.
the community there and the crew and the cast all have this bond of like, you helped us rebuild during bad moment in our time. But yeah, in real life,
there's a lot more heart in this movie than we thought.
yeah, but like Muldoon's like, we have to take them back, and Hammond's just devastated because he wanted that second opinion right now so badly, and for them to be like, "Oh, this is so cool, dinosaurs are back." But Ray Arnold's like, "Look, John, it could have been worse, much worse. It's about to be, but he doesn't know that." And then Dennis Nedry is like talking to the guy. He's like, "The captain says we have to go. We can't say no, and I'm not the captain." It's like, "Fine, I'll improvise." And he goes to like Hammond and Arnold, and he's like, "I'm running a vending machine. I'll eat sweets today. Need something salty. And I did something to computers. 30 minutes take time. Bye." And they're like, "Fucking Nedry."
I was like, alright. No, I love the actor though.
Yeah.
He did a good job playing this sleazy, corrupt scientist. What is he?
IT guy.
Guard? IT guy, yeah.
Yeah. I the only thing I really know him from is Space Jam and Seinfeld.
Yeah, and he was also in a Punisher movie.
But yeah, you keep cutting back and forth between the tour and Nedry stealing the embryos and Nedry going away. And I do like the dialogue between Malcolm and Grant, where he's like, "Do you have a wife? Kids? Yeah, I have kids. I have 3. You have a wife? Yes, I'm always in the lookout for an ex-Mrs. Malcolm." We're like, "Oof, okay." And he asks,
Well, yeah, that's kind of apparent in the second movie.
yeah, and then he asks Grant, like, "Is Dr. Satter available?" He's like, "No. Why?" He's like, "Oh, okay."
No, but I like it that Malcolm kind of saw that. It's like, oh, shit, I'm so sorry. And follows the bro code. So I was like, that's great.
And like, things are going haywire as Dennis Nedry escapes, and for a while, Ray Arnold and John Hammond are just like, and then Dennis Nedry said things will go haywire for a bit. And then after a while, you see like the fences go after, like, that's not right.
There's supposed to be light above there.
Yeah.
Telling us that the electric fence is on.
Yeah. And then Dennis Nedry makes his escape, but he crashes through a sign, and like maybe luck will tell me where to go. Like, I don't think you're making it on time either way, buddy. And then John Hammond asks, like, where did the car stop? And you see where the car stopped, and it's the T-Rex paddock. And like, I do like the cut of like, where did the car stop? And then you cut to the goat, and you're like, oh shit. Dr. Gunn like checks on Gennaro, and Malcolm's like, how about the kids? He's like, I didn't ask the kids. He's like, kids get scared.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't think
rendition was intense. I gotta say, this whole entire scene was so intense because it's isolated. Sure, it's an open space, but it's, to us, it feels like they're stuck in a cage.
Yeah, like the T-Rex pops its head, and the lawyer's like, goodbye. And then poor Legs has
He lost his.
he has abandonment issues for everything he left us. And then you see the fence go back and forth, and you, of course, you see the thud of the footprints, which are falling. What do you call those? Redwoods, California redwoods. That's how they make the sound. And then you have to hit the perfect guitar string to make the ripple. That's how they made that. And you see.
It's so good.
You see the T-Rex break through the fence and it gives its iconic roar, and you're like, holy fuck. Every time I see it, it never gets old.
Do you know what's so odd to me? Like, with recent CGI, like, at some points you could kind of tell. Like, there's that weird uncanny valley where you're like, oh, I know it's fake compared to the real person beside it.
Yeah.
With Jurassic Park, they were limited on their technology, but they knew how to play around it. They filmed the entire scene in the dark while it was raining, and the only way to make the dinosaur look realistic, just make it darker and put white dots around it to resemble the sheen of it being wet.
Yeah.
And that thing looked so goddamn real.
That thing looks better than a lot of things today.
It does. Sure, they had the advantage of it being night, but at some points when you watch a movie now, like that's made today, even at night, you kind of see that it's very rubbery.
Yeah.
You're like,
Like the Taskmaster fight scene, you're like, why is he moving weird? Or sorry, she moving weird.
yeah. So I'm like,
but
it's odd, and like, I don't know. I'm just amazed with how they did this, and I'm so happy this is the movie that woke me the fuck up in life.
And since the T-Rex roar is so iconic, like I feel it in my bones, and since you are a fellow fan, like, can you guess which animals they use for this roar?
I would say a lion and a cow.
You're right with the lion. It's a lion, a crocodile, and a baby elephant. Like the crocodile for like the low part, and then the lion for like when it really roars, and then the baby elephant for like the high end of the roar. And at some point during the attack, you're like, how are the kid's not dead? Because it breaks through the roof. You're like, that's an 8-ton animal attacking you. How you're not dead?
I think going like this is gonna help. I was trying to put my legs up, but I couldn't. I'm not that flexible. Like going like this on glass while God knows how many ton animals are trying to get to me won't help.
Yeah. And then Dr. Grant does the right thing of staying still as he throws the flare, and the T-Rex is distracted. But Dr. Malcolm, wanting to be the hero, runs with the flare, and the T-Rex breaks the restroom completely. And I like the fact that the restroom's near the T-Rex place, because automatically, if this was a normal day, you see a T-Rex, you're like, I think I just
might shit yourself.
Yeah. Which the lawyer does before he meets this unfortunate end. You're like, oh god, for like a director known for like kid stuff mostly, until Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List, you're like, it's a pretty brutal death of the T-Rex just shaking him around. Like, that's not a quick death. And Lex just screaming at terror as the T-Rex is like this close to her. She has to stay still. And you're like, that animatronic is unbelievably real.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it was real. What are you talking about?
It's like a real life breathing actual dinosaur. I know it's like a robot, but like you feel like, oh, thank God it is. Otherwise, I'd be dead right now. Because T-Rex, the whole don't move thing is bullshit. Like a lot of things in this movie is like scientifically speaking bullshit. But that's the magic of movies. But another thing that's bullshit is like when the T-Rex pushes the car down the cliff for like. I don't remember the T-Rex having to climb.
Yeah. Like, that was such an odd thing. The mysterious cliff that comes up as soon as you see the car getting pushed over.
Yeah.
It was a big cliff. We don't know where the hell that cliff came from, but we got an intense scene from it where Alan Grant's hanging on by an electrical wire.
Yeah.
While this Jeep is, Ford Explorer, I don't know, is coming down on them. As this T-Rex is just nudging it off, as if it knew they were hanging on. Yeah. Which is so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then you cut to the control room, and they're like all in a panic because what the fuck did Dennis Nedry do? Get his people from Cambridge. We can't find him. And then you see him driving. Like you're like, buddy, you're late either way. You just drove off the road. You're never making it. And once you have to use the winch, I don't think you're making it. I really don't.
Yeah.
I didn't hear
But,
something.
I mean, hey, the man was being driven by millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's just like, you know what? I can buy new glasses. I won't have to worry about glasses ever again. Literally,
Exactly.
because he doesn't make it through the next few minutes. Because behind him is like adorable sounding Dilophosaurus. And I think you said you want to talk about the book parts. I know this part's different from the movie.
It was way more graphic.
Hmm.
Like they do. No, this is a very similar scene. It's just covered more. But when they did come back and they went back to the scene and they found Dennis naked. You just see his guts opened up, pieces of him missing. It is a brutal scene. The book itself is a way scarier story. I don't know if that was the right sentence, but I would say I prefer the book. And to anyone who's watching and is a fan of Jurassic Park and hasn't read the book, I really suggest reading Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I'll get into more of the other scenes once Enzo starts mentioning them, but I will say that if anyone has the budget and the balls to do it, and has the creativity to do it, please do an accurate adaptation of Jurassic Park as it was in the books. I would love to see that. Like, get the guy who did Chernobyl and The Last of Us. No, seriously, if you read the book, you can feel that he can pull it off. Give it like an 8-episode series, you will love it. I'm giving this pitch for free. The only thing that I'm asking for is for you to make it. Please, the story of Jurassic Park in the books is so fucking good to pass up. And sorry to say, Malcolm doesn't really make it in the book. But then he comes back in the Lost World. Anyway.
But yeah, I'm sure people have seen the scene of the thing with the frill, and you can see the wire too, and it's spitting on Nedry and then getting the headshot, and poor Nedry being disemboweled in the Jeep. And then you see Hammond asking, you go back to Grant and Lex, and he's like, I'm gonna get your brother, and poor Lex is like, he left us. Like, yeah, that's years of therapy.
Yeah, that's PTSD right there. and like, we get this cool scene where Steven Spielberg, being the genius filmmaker he is, not a single dinosaur in sight, and yet there was a threat.
Yeah.
The threat of gravity and a gigantic board falling on you.
Yeah, and when it falls on them, we're like, that's straight off, what's his name, Buster Keaton, as of like, that was close.
That was really close. For sure they didn't drop it on Sam Neill and that poor kid. But it was a cool scene. And I loved recreating that scene with my toys. Like, not even a single dinosaur in sight. Just do that scene. And it's just so fun.
Yeah.
Like, you seeing Dr. Alan Grant and the kid trying to out-climb this falling car. It is so good.
Yeah. And then we go back to the main center where Ray Arnold is refusing to shut down the entire thing because we don't know if it's going to boot up again. And then Hammond, they bring up the lysine contingency program, and Hammond's like, that's out of the question. We're not killing the dinosaurs like that. And then Hammond turns to Muldoon and is like, I'm wondering if you'll be good enough to take a gas jeep and get my grandkids. And Satter comes with him, and they go to the side, and they're looking for the car, and Dr. Satter's like, I think this is a piece of Gennaro. Muldoon's like, I found another piece too. And then they find Dr. Ian Malcolm. He already tourniqueted his leg, and he's like, remind me to take John for a lovely weekend. Like, I like the humor.
He's saying, even in the face of death and bleeding out.
Yeah.
It's like, And we get the Must Go Faster scene.
Yeah.
Where the T-Rex comes back and like sees the Jeep driving away. This shit was so sick. It was so cool, and I would have been so pissed off if I was the driver, because after driving off, this thing was supposed to be faster than the car, by the way. But for some reason, it got nerfed or got tired after it threw that car off that magical ledge that came about.
Yeah.
But old dude's like trying his best to drive while Ian's like trying to back up and not get in.
Yeah.
But he's pushing the gear lever. I was like, you could have killed us all by just fucking up the ship. Like,
Poor Dr. Satter's losing it because this is her first time seeing the T-Rex uncaged. She's like, oh my fucking god.
Yeah, she was like, I would too.
Yeah, like, I think I would just run and then at that point be like, you know what, I accept my fate.
And we get that cool scene that almost every movie in the 90s tried to rip off, where the thing in the mirror might be closer than you think.
Yeah.
Then it seems, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he cut to Lex, Tim, and Dr. Grant, and poor Lex is traumatized with the T-Rex sounds. So they climb the tree to see the Brachiosaurus, and Lex is still traumatized. You're like, no, don't worry, they're plant eaters, you're safe. And then we cut to Hammond and Dr. Satter. He's talking about this flea circus, about control, and that's the mistake. I relied on Dennis Nedry too much. It's like, you don't get it, Hammond. You never had control. That's the illusion. Like the flea circus and the machines, your control is the illusion that you think you can control these animals. You can't. That's your mistake.
Maybe I think that was like, I wonder what was before Jurassic Park. Was there like ever, like, when somebody pitched the concept of a zoo back in the day, was it kind of like this? Like, you can't control these animals, they'll break out.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's... I was about to say something about the sequels, but you're like, you know what? We're having a good time. I don't want to ruin the mood. And then Dr. Grant and Lex and Tim wake up to a Brachiosaurus, and like Lex finally decides to go out of her comfort zone. She's like, alright, say it's a plant eater. You say it's fine. And the thing sneezes on her, and she's like, fuck.
God bless you. Yeah, and then they make their way down the tree. And then they find... Yeah. And this is where Alan Garrett's like, shit, Malcolm was right.
Yeah.
They found a way.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, it could change its sex if evolution requires it.
Yeah.
I was like, damn. And these things are only God knows how many years old? Like 3 or 4?
And then he cut back to the control center where they do shut down the power and it does reboot. Thankfully, and they're like, alright, I just have to go to the compound to really restart the power. And Ray Arnold goes to the compound, never to be seen again.
Which kind of was a waste. I would love to have seen Arnold try his best. You know, like, we know how he ends, but like, I would love to have seen the Velociraptor chasing him through the corridor instead of this invisible thing.
Arm.
Yeah. And like, the Velociraptor, like, placing it right above the control panel. As soon as it like, turns it on, it drops it. Like I said, my Velociraptor knows how to prank somebody.
They did design a set of where Samuel L. Jackson was going to be chased, but it was destroyed in the storm.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? I'll give it that.
Yeah. And then
I'll give it a pass.
Lex, Tim, and Grant see this herd flock of Gallimimuses. And they're like, they might be plant eaters, but I don't want to get hit by them. So they run away
That's
from
true.
them.
Like, as you can say, like, hey, a bison doesn't really eat meat, you know? It's not that dangerous.
I mean,
wildebeest
are plant eaters, and you see what they did to Mufasa. Well, oh well. Yeah, they hide behind a log, and then you see the T-Rex pick one unlucky Gallimimus and destroy it. And the sound you hear...
I could feel that you had a hard time saying that.
Like, what is it called?
Unlucky Gallimimus.
Yeah. Destroys it, and the sound you hear is of the sound maker's dog eating a chew toy. You're like, that's great.
Yeah. That was very creative, but it was kind of obvious that we could hear the,
Yeah.
dog pretty much rattling a chew toy around.
Yeah, back at the bunker, Arnold's taking way too much time, and like Dr. Satter volunteers to go with Muldoon, and they have the map and everything. But Ham's like, it should really be me who's going. She's like, why? It's like, because I'm a, and you're a. Just look, we can discuss sexism in survival situations after. You're like, I like this.
Okay.
You're like, you know what? Heaven, yeah, shut the fuck up. And like you find out later, he can't read a map. You're like, yeah, shut the fuck up. You're screwed either way.
The man's absolutely useless.
Yeah. And then they go outside, but like Muldoon sees that the raptor pen is destroyed. And it's like, damn it. I thought Nedry knew better than to fuck with raptors. And then he tries to escort Satter to the compound, but he realizes they're being hunted. And he tells her to run, and she shuts the door behind her as he's tracking the raptors. At the same time, Lexington and Grant are at the fence where you get the fake prank of like, it's like, you're a dick.
Him electrocuting himself. Yeah. Yeah, that's just sick.
Spielberg really is the master of suspense too, because like as Dr. Satter's opening the switches, Tim, Lex, and Grant are climbing down the fence. You're like, I better not see our heroes get barbecued.
And yes, again, no dinosaur in sight. Spielberg did an amazing job with just making an intense scene without the main star, which are the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a little bit odd, but for sure, for budget reasons, he had to.
And like, even though I've seen this movie God knows how many times, every time they're climbing down, it's like, I hope Tim makes it. I really do.
The same reaction as Tim, where I'm like, where he's like, come on! Sorry, Lex.
Yeah. And he gets electrocuted as Dr. Satter's like, we have power back, but like poor Tim is fried and Dr. Grant has to do CPR. But like as she's celebrating, Dr. Satter is ambushed by a raptor, which occasionally does get me. I'm like, oh god, shit, I forgot about this part.
Yeah, where it comes out like right next to her head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she runs.
Yeah.
You don't see this, by the way. You hear it.
Yeah.
You hear she's being chased and she's desperately trying to run. And you can see that there was a story told. She's limping now.
Yeah.
We don't know what the fuck happened here. She either sprained her ankle or something bitter. I don't know.
She closes the door and starts crying. I'm like, you know what? Honestly, same. I'm like, it almost ate me.
Like, I don't know how that one got out, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to make this point earlier that, like, I pointed out the similarities of Jaws and this in the beginning, and like, it's interesting because Jaws has a tone switch at 1 hour and 10 minutes when they go hunting for the shark, and then at 1 hour and 10 minutes here, Hammond tells Muldoon like, "Can you please get my grandkids?" So there's a switch that happens between this being like, oh, it's just a smart discussion of like playing God to like, oh, we're trying to survive now.
Yeah, and speaking of Muldoon, as the book reader, it was a shame because his character in the books was so great. It kind of felt like he was the main character. He was the warden who tried his best to keep this park like at its place, like make sure nothing gets out of line. And he had a rocket launcher, for fuck's sake. The man knew what he was dealing with. No, I'm not joking. They had a rocket launcher
what kind of
hand.
Dino Crisis bullshit is this?
That is how Muldoon took care of one of them. And I was like, dude, see, this is what I'm telling you. A fucking book should be a show. Oh my god. Dude, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent here. The first scene of Jurassic Park, the book, it starts out like an X-Files episode where they're in Costa Rica and there's these incidents happening where these children are being eaten, and to all the superstitious locals are like, oh, it's a this mythical creature, it's killing our kids. And you find out that a compy actually got out got on a boat and went into mainland Costa Rica and started eating children. And if it wasn't able to eat a kid, and if it was just able to just bite it a little bit, the kid would die from rabies. Instant rabies. Now keep that in mind. You have Velociraptors, Dilophosaurus, T-Rex, and God knows what else that can kill you in this park. Imagine a show where these tourists go into an island, tries to survive as the animals get out. But like a zombie apocalypse, if you get bit, you're done. It doesn't matter if you got out of the scuffle or not. As soon as you bit and you have a little bit of their spit in you, you're gonna die from rabies soon after. That's how scary the book was. That's how intense the book was. And I was like, why didn't they keep this concept? It's such a shame. The Velociraptors were way scarier and they were way more, how do I say, present in the book. That's how much of a threat they were. T-Rex was there too. He was cool. But the main star, in my opinion, was the Velociraptors that were hunting down these tourists. I was like, and Alan Grant was a completely different character.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, Robert Muldoon doesn't make it. We got the clever girl scene where you think it's in front of him, but it's actually on the side. You're like, well, I guess I'm done.
Yeah, it played the what do you call that strategy game? like there was a dummy Velociraptor like far ahead. He was like, I gotcha. It was like, ha, jokes. It was actually a bait. Fuck you, and he kills him.
Tim is revived and is brought back to the main center, and then you guys like, really, I'll be back. I'll just look for others, the survivors. And he gets reunited with Dr. Sattler while Tim and Lex dine on like a day's old. This director like, you know what? That's fine. You deserve it.
It looked fine.
Yeah.
It looked great. Like they had the whole buffet. I would have. Not gonna lie. When I was a kid, I was like, whoa. I want to try. What's that behind you? Like the dinosaurs like are printed on the back.
Yeah.
Start to move. Oh, cool! Look at that. I'm making it with my shadows.
Yeah. And then you get the great reaction shot from Lex of like, we're not done.
With the Jello shaking.
Yeah, and this is my favorite. As a kid, it was the T-Rex scene, but now it's the Raptor scene. That's my favorite because it's just such great suspenseful music, and Spielberg does the cut of like. Dr. Sasha's like, it's fine. It's not like the Raptors open doors. Oh my, they open doors.
Yeah, and then we get the kitchen scene. I will say this third arc, or the third half of this movie, is, I would say, nearly perfect. Well, nearly perfect because there was a stupid scene somewhere in this third arc. So, yeah, we get the intense kitchen scene where the Velociraptors would just sniff around, look for Lex and Tim as they navigate through the kitchen, trying not to drop any of the utensils that's there. Yeah. They lock one of the Velociraptors inside of the ref. They knock one out. And then the other one just follows them.
Yeah.
And then they get to the control center. And there's the part where it kind of frustrated me, but at the same time, the intensity was there where they're like, can you guys lock the door? Pulls his head up, the Velociraptor's right there.
Yeah. And then
I was like, uh-oh.
And then Dr. Sattler tries to help Grant push back the Raptor. She's trying to reach the gun, and Tim's just like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, Tim, push the gun, please.
Tim's gonna like, hurry up before the dinosaur. Why not push the shotgun a little bit closer to the doctor? You know?
And then you get the most 90s scene of like, I'm a computer hacker. I'm a computer nerd. I can hack the system. We're like, sure.
It's a Unix system. I was like, I don't think this is how it works. What kind of programmer made this bullshit mapping system?
You know what? You're all confused in the 90s. I'll give this a big fucking pass.
I didn't have a computer like this in the 90s. I don't think I was born when this thing came out. So.
Neither was I. Or like there weren't, very, wide use. Like if you saw computers, like it's only for work. You can never play games. And you're like, 20 years later, you're like I play.
Yeah, we use it for porn and YouTube videos.
Yeah, the future, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah,
chaos theory.
They lock the doors, and he's like, Hammond, the phones are working. But the Raptors break through, and Grant uses the shotgun. And you can't aim at something that fast. Obviously, as the Raptors break through, they do a die hard and are crawling through the vents, and a Raptor pops up and then ambushes his poor Lex. This poor kid is never going to sleep for the next couple of months.
They will never look at that gecko the same ever again. Or a chicken.
It's a cool shot
Your
too.
distant relative almost killed me.
Yeah, it's a cool shot too of the Raptor with like the DNA code, even though you know that's not how a computer screen projects and stuff. But whatever.
So that's what it was.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I was like, why are there words on the wrap? I was like, is that the light coming from the vent? I don't get it. But anyway, it made an intense scene. Probably there was a projector somewhere there.
Sure.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But we do get this cool scene where they finally find their way out of the vent, and they're immediately at the scaffolding area.
With the skeletons hanging on as the Raptors are closing in. Like, again, I've seen this movie a shit ton of times, and I'm still like gripping the edges of my seat, like, oh my god, why does this movie have this effect on me?
Yeah, and then you see like Tim like fall off, and then like a rib cage almost like kills him.
As another kid who doesn't trust falling things ever again, he's like, I can't.
Yeah, like the other one has abandonment issues and reptile like phobia. The other one, just anything that deals with gravity.
And like Dr. Grant's trying to protect them, and you're like, I don't know what your end game is, but you're a good man, Dr. Grant. As the Raptors about to run, you get like the XX Tyrannosaurus. Like, the T-Rex just snuck in here. You know what? I'll allow it. I'll still allow it.
Yeah, like you don't hear that like thud, that water ripple thing.
Yeah.
It's just like tears. Whoa!
Suddenly it's from the League of Assassins. You're like, you know what? Fuck it. I like this anyway.
It's like sneak level 100. I was like, okay, I guess that works.
Yeah, and then,
but it was a cool scene where the T-Rex does a 1v3, but I would still say this is very unfair.
Yeah. And like as it's fighting the Raptors, like the crew make it out and they meet John Hammond, and he's like, Grant's like, after careful consideration, I have decided not to endorse your park. And Hammond's like, so have I.
All right.
And the T-Rex just throws the Raptor against its own skeleton, and you get the shot of it roaring with when dinosaurs rule the earth. And John Hammond's giving one last look at his dream that's now gone forever. And then
in shambles. Well, not really forever.
Sure.
But it's in shambles.
Yeah. And then they fly away, and like you see the character development of Grant, where he didn't like kids in the beginning. Now he does, and you're like, maybe him and Dr. Sattler can get together. 3 answers that would have definitive like no. We're like, oh, okay. But the minion, you're like, yes. You're like, stop confusing people. Stop it.
Stop teasing me.
Yeah, and now I have a Mandela effect. When I think they look out, they see pterodactyls, but it's actually like normal.
Yeah, that's the third movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm like, every time I see the end of the movie, I was like, I could have sworn those were pterodactyls. And they're like,
goddamn seagulls.
They're like, more death and destruction heading towards the mainland.
Yeah, like whose good idea was it just to be like, you know what? Let's make the dinosaur that migrates. You know? I was like, just why?
Yeah, and like on like a $63 million budget, this movie made $931 million. It was the highest grossing movie of that time, and the Mad Lad, being the Mad Lad that Spielberg is, he's like, you know what? I'm not satisfied with doing one great movie for 1993. I will do the powerful movie that is Schindler's List, and we will do that when we're all emotionally ready to do that someday. But just to be like, you know what, I'm gonna make a popcorn flick that everyone can watch, and I'm gonna make arguably one of the greatest movies of all time in the same year, says to the talent and how gifted Spielberg is. And if you say that Steven Spielberg is the greatest director of all time, I will not argue with you on that. Like, you are right. Yeah. I don't have any qualms against the man. And it's nice to know that he's a director that's nice. That's Nina said.
Again, like, what was his name again?
The nice
The one
one.
that did The Shining.
Kubrick, Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I won't end. I hate your movie, The Shining, and I hate you.
Yeah, and like out of all his other contemporaries like Lucas and like other directors who were popular back in the day, he's literally the one who's like almost consistently like, you know what, I'll check out his movies because they're almost consistently good. Say what you will about like say Ready Player One, but the library that he has, you're like, I won't. That one mistake, I'll forgive for that.
Yeah, like, come on, meet Jurassic Park.
But yeah, all those things being said, what would you rate the first Jurassic Park?
10 out of 10. It is. Deep down, I can't find anything bad about it. Sure, there are scenes. I will acknowledge them. But I can't hate this movie. If you put it up, I will watch it. If I'm in the middle of a dinner in a 5-star restaurant and then for some reason the restaurant was like, hey, we got a TV in the middle of the room. Here's Jurassic Park. I would stop eating and just watch. That's how good this movie is. For a product of its time, it's so good. And the way they work around their limited amount of technology just to make the thing look real. Oh, God, it is breathtaking. And for sure, everybody who saw this for the first time in theaters was just, like, blown away. The acting is great, the story is great, the message behind it is great, where it is more relevant now than it was in 1992. And I love for it. And I love the trilogy with its faults. It's like a mother with a child, like, I still like it. Even though it's a piece of shit, I like it. Except for the other one, the other trilogy. But yeah, it is a 10 out of 10, and it will always be a 10 out of 10 in my heart and in my mind. And even though it is a 10 out of 10, I would love to see somebody, please, whoever's watching this, who's a director, make a Last of Us series-esque type of show with the book. It deserves it, and it has good material. Please.
I mean, James Cameron was planning like this Aliens, but with dinosaurs if we had got the rights. I just cannot see Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dr. Grant.
I just see Arnold Schwarzenegger punching a velociraptor.
Yeah, it's an easy 10 out of 10. Like, this movie has been an iconic movie for 30 years for a damn good reason. Like, the characters, you all know them. You all, like, again, without even saying their names, when I say the humans of Jurassic Park, the first one, you see Dr. Satter, Dr. Grant, Ian Malcolm, John Hammond, Muldoon, Dennis Nedry. Like, you see what they do, you know where the story goes and where they end. And, like, you see in your mind the iconic moments of the T-Rex, the Brachiosaurus, the Raptors, everything. And it's an important movie, too, because it shows what CGI can do. Granted, we got a lot of copycats, like the John Wick copycats. So we're like, that thing is popular. If we just use CGI, we're instantly a classic. No, that's probably not. That's Lucas had to learn that the hard way with the prequels. But there really is no movie like Jurassic Park, and it is one of my it's like top 3 of my all-time great movies that I will keep watching till the end of my time. And I'll pass it on to my kids. Like, you don't have to like Star Wars. You just have to like this, please. I'm begging.
Same here. Like, hey, you remember Star Wars? It doesn't really go that well. Watch this.
Yeah.
You can watch the Clone Wars, just not those.
Yeah. And like this week we'll keep going back to the 90s because why not? The 90s was a fun time. But yeah, for now that has been our video on Jurassic Park. The original one celebrating 30 years of a really damn good movie. If you want to see more of us, please like, subscribe, and ding the bell icon to get notified of when we upload next. And if you want to share your childhood experiences with Jurassic Park, whether you grew up in the 90s or 2000s or 2010s, please tell us. Be cool about it. If you want to see more of us, and see my big oopsie when hyping the original Jurassic Park video, you can find us at TikTok, Facebook, and Spotify. For the oopsie, you can find those at Facebook and TikTok. TikTok to see our best and funniest moments. Facebook to see us react to trailers, and that's where we also used to upload our funny clips until TikTok came along. And for Spotify, maybe you are enjoying the nice beaches of Costa Rica and listening to us. So yeah.
And hopefully not getting dinosaur rabies.
If you find a surviving dinosaur, cool, but please stay away from it. You don't know what it can do. As Jomer said, instant rabies is not a good thing. But individually, you can find me at Gandalfus1995 on Twitter. How about you?
Oh, you can find me at JohnGLM on Instagram. It's my account. Sorry, underscore on Instagram. That's my account.
Yeah, and for our next 90s property, we'll be talking about a hero that everybody grew up idolizing up to now, and the voice who brought that hero to life. Till then, we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.
Ciao.